My name is Rick, and I'm 26 years old. A few months ago, I moved to a new city in search of greener pastures and a shot at independence, but I never knew it was the universe's way of matchmaking me with someone from my past, a guy who, respectfully, was a certified jerk. It was my first official day at work, and I was practically floating on cloud nine. My excitement was oozing out of every pore, and I couldn't help but smile like a lunatic. I adjusted my tie approximately 1,000,000 times, hoping to strike the perfect balance between sharp and not trying too hard, and I walked confidently until I stumbled to my office, which was more like a glorified cubicle, sitting across a much larger office that probably had its own postal code. But at least it was mine, and I was so proud of myself for getting a job at one of the most prestigious marketing firms in the state. I shut the door and did a little happy dance before settling into the chair. Feeling all corporate and snazzy, I decided to capture the moment with a selfie for my Snapchat story with a classic corporate man caption to go along with it. But just as I was perfecting my angle, the door swung open without so much as a courtesy knock. I was shocked to see Eugene Hansen, aka one of my really close friends in high school 10 years ago, aka the guy who never responded to my love letter and practically rejected me. "So you're my personal assistant," Eugene sneered, the disgust on my face practically visible from space. I froze. He was even more handsome now and much taller. He had a strong, chiseled jawline, accentuated by a set of expressive dark brows that framed his piercing eyes. His hair, maintaining its familiar style, was neatly wrapped into a small, sleek man bun. Eugene checked his wristwatch and then glanced at me. "I think I know you from somewhere," he said, his eyes narrowing with a hint of recognition. He shifted his attention to my nameplate. "Rick Morris. Did you go to Stan's high school?" I couldn't believe the audacity of this man. Was he being serious? The both of us were more than just friends. Despite the years gap, we were practically brothers, always hanging out until that faithful weekend of skinny dipping, when things took an unexpected turn, and my stomach started fluttering with butterflies. As I snapped back to reality, I felt a wave of embarrassment for letting my mind drift into a past I had worked hard to forget. "Yeah, I did. I'm so shocked to see you here, Eugene," I replied, flashing him a practiced smile. "It's Mr. Hansen around here. Feel free to take your selfie now. You won't be able to do that after the meeting by 10 a.m., Eugene declared, his tone dripping with authority before nonchalantly walking out. I sat there, utterly speechless and drowning in embarrassment. Why did Eugene have to end up being my boss? And out of all the marketing firms, why did I have to stumble into the one where he was the team leader? I collapsed into my seat, covering my face with my palms as if that would somehow shield me from the unfolding reality. Soon enough, the clock mercilessly ticked its way to the meeting at Eugene's office. I arrived right on time, only to feel like an intruder stumbling into a private affair as everyone was already seated.
"Hey, you can sit here."
A kind soul gestured to me to take the seat next to him. I slightly mouthed a thank you and scurried over. All eyes were on me, including Eugene's. So, as we all know, my former assistant had to resign due to personal issues with his wife. Hence, we have a new member joining us today. I'm sure some of you have already seen him, but let's formally welcome Rick Molly, Eugene announced. The room erupted in polite applause as I stood up, trying my best to appear composed. "Thanks, everyone. It's Rick Morris, by the way," I corrected with a half smile as I took my seat. Ouch. You see, that's the thing with names that don't leave an impression. They're easy to forget. And this brings us to why we are here today, choosing a brand name for our client's newest product, Eugene declared, leaving me dumbfounded for the third time in less than 3 hours. Did he just suggest my name was forgettable? And to top it off, did he cleverly use my supposedly forgettable name to support his theories? It was a smart move, no doubt, but was it really necessary? The next day, we had a brief meeting again, and I knew better to come minutes ahead of the appointed time. As the meeting concluded, everyone stood up ready to leave. However, Eugene had other plans and asked me to stay behind. He handed me a manual. I don't know about your previous job, but I usually give this manual to all my assistants. Please read it carefully to understand your responsibilities. I also have a bonus page on what you shouldn't do to piss me off. I'm sure you'll find it very helpful. I fought the urge to scream, and instead maintained composure. Sure, thanks, I said with a forced smile as I accepted the manual. You're welcome, and by the way, that's a nice tie. Blue looks good on you, Eugene remarked as he dismissed me. I glanced at my tie. It was red. As I settled into my office, I took a deep breath and recited my personal mantra. You can't control others. You can only control yourself. However, as the days unfolded, that mantra became a distant memory. Eugene proved to be an insufferable boss, and more often than not, I found myself on the brink of submitting my resignation letter. But the memory of page 6 from the darn manual resurfaced, detailing the precise formalities, font, and line spacing for resigning. The mere thought of following his manual to quit my job made the idea even more unappealing, and I decided to endure, rather than give him the satisfaction. I couldn't believe that I once had a huge crush on Eugene back in high school. I even went so far as to write him a love letter, bearing my soul and confessing all my feelings. I was grateful he rejected me. Who would want to be with such an asshole? One afternoon, just before the close of work, I found myself tasked with delivering a set of documents to Eugene. My hands were full, and I had already informed him about my scheduled visit at 3 p.m. I leaned against the door, gently pushing it open with my shoulder, but the sight that greeted me nearly made me drop the files on the floor. There was Beatrice, a sales representative, and one of the most esteemed and sexiest women in the company, seemingly all over Eugene, who in turn was awkwardly attempting to push her away.
I really like you,
I overheard Beatrice declare. I'm terribly sorry for interrupting, I stammered, hastily retreating, and found myself panting heavily in the hallway. I was still trying to process what I had just witnessed when Beatrice walked out, shooting daggers at me. Once she left, I cautiously re-entered the room, finding Eugene seated uncomfortably. He seemed upset, but paradoxically, still managed to maintain an attractive demeanor. Couldn't you knock? Eugene shouted. I'm terribly sorry. My hands were full, I responded. You can drop the documents over there, said Eugene, gesturing to the shelf next to me. And there's nothing going on between Beatrice and me. Keep what you saw to yourself, Eugene warned. Page 5 explicitly outlines the prohibition of relationships among the staff. Are you an exception? I asked, unable to resist pointing it out. If looks could kill, Eugene would have likely faced charges for murder. So you want to rat me out? I just said that nothing happened between us, Eugene retorted. Yeah, of course. Maybe if you cut me some slack, I'll think about keeping my mouth shut. I've been stressing about not having much to talk about with the others. I'm sure they will love this, I responded, feeling a spark of satisfaction. Although I was a bit worried it might backfire, I still wanted to give it a shot. Working as Eugene's PA was already hell. There was no greater punishment. Are you trying to blackmail me? That's a poor tactic, and it clearly won't work on me, Eugene asked me, clearly vexed. Okay, I'll just leave this here and tell Lucas and Hardy what I saw, I said with a chuckle. What do you want? Eugene asked, annoyed. My smile widened as I mulled over all the things I could make Eugene do to keep his dirty little secret. Just cut me some slack. I work extra hard and I need a breather, I pleaded. I'm not interested in dragging your name through the mud. I like working for you and this company, but it's hard to do that when you hate me. From that day forward, Eugene inexplicably went easy on me. The deluge of documents that used to flood my desk miraculously lessened, allowing me the luxury of enjoying my lunch breaks without the usual work-related chaos. Eugene surprised me even further by starting to talk to me like a human being, and he gave me genuine compliments. There were moments when it felt like he was genuinely approachable, and in those instances, I had consciously reminded myself that this newfound civility was likely a direct result of catching him with Beatrice. Sometimes I found myself wondering what had happened between us in high school, and why he had grown so cold towards me, acting like I was a stranger. What caught me completely off guard was the day Eugene brought me a cup of coffee, accompanied by a note that simply read, "Great job. Keep up the good work." It was a seemingly small gesture, but it struck a chord deep within me, and against my better judgment, I felt my heart respond. I couldn't deny the fluttering feeling. I was starting to fall for Eugene all over again. As weeks turned into months, I found myself wrestling with a sense of stupidity and self-pity. Even after a decade, I hadn't managed to get over Eugene. The realization that something as simple as a cup of coffee could stir up my dormant feelings felt both absurd and frustrating. But it wasn't just the coffee anymore. Sometimes in the middle of meetings, Eugene's gaze towards me would soften and a smile would play on his lips. I felt like I was reading meanings into things that I shouldn't have, letting my own feelings color my interpretations of his actions. But I still liked the feeling anyway. I had a huge crush on Eugene Hansen again. One morning, Eugene called me for a meeting in his office. I thought he was about to mention that he was fed up with the niceties, and I was getting ready to pull up the blackmail card when he cleared his throat. "So, there's a promotion offer on the table, and it can potentially benefit both of us. Consider yourself lucky," Eugene said, handing me a piece of paper. I took the paper from him and carefully read through the details. The proposal outlined Eugene's promotion to the head of the marketing department, while I would retain my role as his personal assistant, but with a significant increase in pay. "This means I'll need you to work even harder, and we need to do this together," Eugene explained. I nodded, acknowledging the responsibility that came with the opportunity. As I absorbed the implications, the realization struck me that Eugene and I would be spending even more time together, and the thought made me even happier. Eugene glanced at me, his brow furrowed in mild confusion. "Is something wrong?" "You're smiling, and it's weird," he remarked. I chuckled, shaking my head. "No, nothing's wrong. I was just thinking about how much more time we'll be spending together with this promotion," I replied, attempting to downplay the unusual warmth that had crept into my expression. As soon as I said it, I realized what I had inadvertently revealed, and I wished the ground would open up and swallow me whole. "And is there something wrong with that?" Eugene asked. Frantically, I searched for a quick response to cover up my slip. "No, not at all," I stammered, attempting to conjure a casual tone. I just meant, more time to strategize and work together efficiently. It's a good thing." I flashed a forced smile, hoping my feeble attempt at redirection would suffice. The last thing I wanted was for Eugene to think that I still harbored feelings for him, especially after he had rejected me before. "Oh, good then, because we have to go over some documents today. I'll send them to your mail later today. You can leave," Eugene said, dismissing me. Relieved by the change of topic, I nodded and swiftly made my exit. Eugene and I found ourselves spending an increasing amount of time together to secure the promotion. Our work-related discussions split beyond the office walls, often taking us to cafes and coffee shops. Surprisingly, we even extended our collaborations to the weekends, where we talked about plans and marketing strategies. My delusional self couldn't help but consider these meetings as dates, as I found myself putting in extra effort to look nice each time we met. I kept hoping our talks would shift from work to something more personal, a glimpse into the lives we led outside the office. I wanted to know about the years that slipped by and the people we had shared them with. Yet our conversations continued to orbit around work. One Friday evening, Eugene and I had to meet some potential clients at a bar. We got there ahead of time, snagged seats at the VIP spot, and just chilled, waiting for them to show up. Eugene ordered some drinks for us while we waited, but eventually, it became evident that our anticipated meeting was not going to happen. "We should leave," I said. I noticed the disappointment on Eugene's face, but soon he lit up and called the waiter to get us more drinks. Eugene began, a mischievous glint in his eye. "This might be the universe's way of telling us to enjoy ourselves. Why waste a good VIP spot and perfectly good drinks?" I smiled as I downed a shot. "You're right, boss," I said, clinking my glass against his. Before we knew it, we had taken more shots than we expected. Eugene, in a carefree manner, loosened his tie and undid a few buttons of his shirt. He casually freed his man bun, and I couldn't help but gulp at how attractive he looked. Why did he have to be so handsome? And why did I like him? As the alcohol took its effect, I slightly prayed that I wouldn't do anything stupid, knowing fully well how drunk I was becoming. However, it seemed my prayers went unanswered. "I think I'm drunk," Eugene mumbled, his attempts to check the time on his wristwatch proving to be more challenging than usual. "Gosh, you're prettier when you're drunk. You know, Eugene," I slurred the words, stumbling out. I wrote you a letter in high school, like a love letter." Eugene, with a tipsy grin, shot back. "Really? Are you sure? Because, man, I swear I never got any letter." "You didn't get any letter? So why did you stop talking to me? And why did you act like you didn't know me?" "Because you started it, Rick. In high school, I thought you didn't like me, because you started ignoring me out of the blue. One day we were friends, and the next day, you stopped hanging out with me. I tried to reach out to you, but you completely shut me out, and started talking with your other friends. That really sucked, and I hated you for it," Eugene admitted, letting out a small laugh. I couldn't believe it. Eugene's tipsy grin shifted into a more thoughtful expression, as if processing the years of misunderstanding. In the midst of the alcohol-fueled atmosphere, Eugene leaned in a bit closer. "Rick," he began, his words slightly slurred, "I never wanted you to think that I didn't like you. I thought you were the one not interested, so I kept it that way." I finally understood why our friendship had gone sour. I admitted I had stopped talking to Eugene because I was hurt and felt rejected. But what I didn't know was that he never received a letter. "I'm sorry," I said, embarrassed at how everything had played out. "I thought you didn't like me." "Well, none of that matters now, I guess," Eugene blurted out with a chuckle. "I really missed you, Ricky. I really did." The way he said my name warmed my heart in unexplainable ways, and I was taken back to our high school days when it was just Eugene and I hanging out together. I found my gaze lingering on his lips, wishing he could say it again. When I looked back at him, I noticed his eyes were locked on mine. "So what was in the letter?" Eugene asked, dragging his words. My cheeks stained red as I recalled every single thing I had written down. "That I like you," I said. "And now?" he asked. "I think I still do," I replied. In an instant, our lips collided in an intense, passionate kiss, but as soon as it happened, it ended abruptly as Eugene pulled away, apologizing. I apologize, we shouldn't," he said, a mixture of regret and surprise in his eyes. I felt a twinge of sadness, but I tried to pretend like I was unbothered. "Yeah, Beatrice," I replied, attempting to deflect the awkwardness with a casual remark. "We should leave, it's pretty late," he said, breaking the lingering silence. After that night, Eugene and I couldn't shake off the uncomfortable atmosphere that hung between us. Despite the tension, we had to maintain our professionalism as we continued working together. I felt stupid for initiating the kiss, especially since it was obvious that Eugene was straight, but I couldn't stop thinking about how soft his lips were. One day, an opportunity arose for us to visit our rival company. The headquarters were undeniably sleek, adorned with all chrome and glass. As we walked to the CEO's office, the boss, Bridget, sauntered over, her confidence radiating arrogance.
"Well, if it isn't Eugene Hansen."
She sneered, her eyes flickering dismissively over to me.
"And who's this?"
she added, gesturing in my direction. Eugene maintained his composure, offering a slight smile. "This is Rick, my personal assistant." Bridget's gaze sharpened, and she shot me a disdainful look.
"A personal assistant? Really, Eugene, aiming low these days, aren't we?"
I bit my lip, trying to keep my cool.
"Rick, be a darling and get us some coffee. Third door by your right."
I was about to leave when Eugene stopped me. Eugene's jaw tightened, and he shot me an apologetic glance. "Actually, Bridget, Rick is here as my equal colleague. We're both part of this visit, and I expect him to be treated with the same respect as me," Eugene said. Bridget scoffed, clearly unaccustomed to being challenged.
"Your equal colleague? He's just a personal assistant. Know your place.
Eugene's eyes flashed with determination, and he retorted, "His title doesn't diminish his worth. Rick is an integral part of our team, and I won't tolerate any disrespect towards him." As Eugene defended my honor, I couldn't help but feel warmth spreading in my chest. Eugene was standing up for me. Later, as we left the rival company's office, Eugene turned to me with a casual yet cool smirk. "Well, that was interesting, huh?" I couldn't help but smile. "Thanks for having my back there," I said. Eugene just smiled and patted me on my shoulder. That weekend, I was at home preparing breakfast when my phone rang. I was surprised to see Eugene's name on the caller ID, especially as he had never called me with my personal number unscheduled. His voice sounded weak, and he explained that he wouldn't be able to meet me at the cafe later in the day, so he needed me to get some important files from his house, as he was too unwell to bring them himself. Eugene quickly relayed the details, providing the address to his house. Upon arriving at Eugene's place, I was surprised by the sight that greeted me. He was resting on the couch with his laptop propped open, and he looked visibly unwell, surrounded by the gloominess of sickness. He looked so pale and exhausted, clearly in no condition to be working. "The files are inside," Eugene said weakly. I rummaged through his home office and retrieved the files, but I couldn't shake off the worry for Eugene's well-being. Returning to his living room, I found him still working, looking miserable. "You should be resting, not worrying about work," I scolded gently. Eugene managed a weak smile. "I can't help it. The job never stops." I rolled my eyes. "Well, today it does. I'm not leaving until you're feeling better." As the day unfolded, I assumed the role of caretaker, bringing him soup and medicine and making sure that he stayed hydrated. We talked and laughed, and the walls of awkwardness between us began to crumble. In those vulnerable moments, Eugene opened up about his fears, ambitions, and the challenges he faced in the corporate world. I also talked about my own dreams and where I saw myself in 2 years. "Probably doing your job," I laughed. Eugene smiled. "Who knows? You're pretty smart. I should be afraid," he responded. "You know everyone at the office thinks you're the best PA I've had." His words caught me off guard, and my eyes widened in surprise. I hadn't anticipated such acknowledgement, especially considering the initial tension between us. "It's easier when you admire your boss," I quipped with a smirk, attempting to downplay the compliment. Late in the evening, Eugene rested more comfortably. He looked at me with gratitude in his eyes. "Thanks, Ricky. I appreciate you being here." I shrugged it off, trying to keep things light. "You're welcome, Mr. Hanson." Eugene's gaze held mine. "Please, it's Eugene," he whispered. I couldn't help but laugh a little. "What, are we friends now?" I teased, attempting to lighten the mood. "I don't know, Ricky. I'm your boss, maybe your friend, but I feel like we could be more." Eugene revealed, his words hanging in the air. "More? What about Beatrice?" I asked him, shocked. Eugene just stared at me with heavy, sleep-filled eyes. "I'm gay too, dummy. I saw a boy's body once while skinny dipping in high school, and I knew I was attracted to guys." He replied groggily, "Sorry I don't carry a rainbow-themed handkerchief like you do." A blush crept up my cheek, and his confession birthed countless ideas in my head. He was talking about me. "You want us to be more like lovers?" I asked. Eugene nodded his head. "Maybe," he replied. Before I could say anything, Eugene drifted off into sleep. I stood there watching him. He looked so perfect. I leaned down and pressed a soft kiss on his forehead. As I reached my house, I couldn't believe what happened at Eugene's place. Were we dating now? Was he my boyfriend? Or did he just say that because he was unwell? I was so confused and slept with my shoes on due to overthinking. However, when I woke up the next morning, I saw a text from me that cleared all my doubts. "Hey babe, I can call you that now, right? Thanks for yesterday," the message read. I quickly typed a message full of love emojis of different colors, but changed my mind and settled for a shorter message instead. "That's what boyfriends are for. Let me know if you need me," I replied and hit the send button. Eugene and I started dating in secret from then on. Our love story unfolded in peculiarly, from friends to crushes to strangers to work colleagues, and finally to lovers. I couldn't shake the wish that we didn't have to be so secretive, but the constraints of our work ethics left us with no choice. The last thing we needed was anything jeopardizing the hard-earned promotion we both sought. At the office, Eugene and I managed to steal moments of affection when we were sure no one was looking, and while it felt illegal, it made our romance even more exciting. We would exchange quick kisses when we were alone in the elevator and mischievous grins as the doors opened, and Eugene would demand I come to his office, pretending to be mad at me when he just wanted to put his arms around me and kiss me. We spent nights alternating between our apartments, and work was a perfect guise to go on dates without the fear of people suspecting a single thing. However, we went too far one day. The night before our big presentation, things took an unexpected turn in the office restroom. Eugene had texted me, telling me to meet him at the restroom so we could try something new. I didn't hesitate. I rushed to the restroom, unaware that Beatrice had been suspicious of the both of us. Eugene grabbed me immediately. I stepped in and kissed him. Just as we thought we were alone, the restroom door swung open, revealing Beatrice. Her eyebrows shot up, and she looked like she had seen a ghost.
Oh my goodness,
She exclaimed.
what the heck? You rejected me for this guy?
She asked, her disbelief evident in her tone. Beatrice walked out of the restroom angrily. Wait here, Eugene whispered to me as he followed her. Curious as I was, I discreetly trailed them without making my presence known. They walked outside the office, and I stood in a corner, overhearing their conversation. You can't say anything, Eugene begged.
Funny how you know that's exactly what I'm going to do. How could you be gay? And why would you even think of having a relationship at the office?
You forget you were all over me a few months ago too, Beatrice, Eugene shot back. I watched as the anger on Beatrice's face grew.
You could have just told me you were gay instead of making me feel like I wasn't wanted. You know my friends all made fun of me because of you.
I clearly said I wasn't interested, Beatrice, and you're a great woman, really, Eugene said.
I'll tell everyone at the office. You can kiss your promotion goodbye. This is probably what you get for choosing that guy over me.
Look, what I have with Rick is nothing serious. We're just messing around. I'll end things with him. This promotion is important, please. You can't ruin this for me. Eugene begged. My heart broke at his confession. I couldn't even listen anymore. Disappointed, I stood up and walked away. Eugene reached out to me later that day. I pretended everything was cool, but deep down, I felt so angry and disappointed. The next day, the celebration of our promotion was supposed to be a joyous occasion, but for me, it was a bittersweet affair. Eugene's attempts to engage with me were met with cold silence, and I couldn't bring myself to look at him, let alone celebrate alongside him. Eugene couldn't understand my sudden behavior change and tried to talk to me multiple times, but each time I rebuffed him. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he cornered me in the break room. What is going on, Rick? Why are you ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? He asked, genuine confusion etched across his face. I couldn't hold it any longer. I heard everything, Eugene, I replied coldly, my heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. Eugene's eyes widened in realization. Rick, I can explain. But I cut him off, the pain too fresh. Save it. I don't want to hear it. From that moment on, I kept my distance, avoiding Eugene at all costs. Little did I know, it was Eugene's last day at the office. What was it, and why he did what he did, I couldn't tell. All I knew was that I desperately wanted for a miracle. I wanted him to return and tell me it was all a big surprise that he wanted to give me. However, I received no such words of comfort. The days that followed were a haze of confusion, anger, and heartache. Eugene's abrupt departure left a void in the office, and the rumors about his resignation circulated like wildfire. Colleagues whispered in hushed tones, speculating about the reasons behind his sudden exit. I felt blindsided, unaware that Eugene had turned in his resignation letter before the celebration that marked our supposed triumph. I spent the week in a state of perpetual frustration. My attempts to reach Eugene were met with silence, and I couldn't understand why he would choose to leave without proper explanation, especially after we had worked so hard for the promotion. Even the hope that it all might have been a grand surprise for me was disappearing. A new head of the marketing department was anointed, and I kept my position as the personal assistant with increased pay. But my life wasn't the same without Eugene. As the week drew to a close, my anxiety peaked. I couldn't concentrate on work, my mind continually replaying our last conversation, and I blamed myself for not giving him the chance to explain. I got home in the evening, exhausted from the day's work, and was about to collapse on my bed when my phone rang. The caller ID displayed Eugene's name, and without a moment's hesitation, I answered. My early hope was met with truth. "What do you want, Eugene?" I questioned, my emotions still raw from the recent events. "Rick, please come outside. We need to talk." Eugene's voice pleaded through the phone. The request took me by surprise, but I hastily made my way to the entrance of my apartment building. As I stepped outside, I found Eugene waiting, holding a bouquet. I was upset and angry, but I wanted to hug him and kiss him because I missed him so much. Tears welled up in my eyes as I faced him. Eugene took a step closer, extending the bouquet towards me. I couldn't resist the magnetic pull of his presence, and against my better judgment, I accepted the flowers. "Why did you quit?" I choked out, tears falling freely down my cheeks. Eugene sighed and pulled me into a hug. He began, "It was all supposed to be a surprise for you. However, as it turns out, I am shit at planning anything nice. I got a job offer from Bridget. It pays double what I was earning, and I couldn't turn it down. Rick, this was the plan all along. I wanted you to get the promotion. I'm sorry for not telling you." The weight of his words hung in the air, and for a moment, I felt a strange relief. So that was it? A surprise? A badly planned surprise, sure, but it was obvious he did his best to not make it messier, even though he did. But there was something else I was curious about. "What about the things you told Beatrice about us?" I asked him. Eugene pulled away and laughed lightly. "I was just stalling so she wouldn't rat us out. We couldn't afford to lose what we worked so hard for," he said. "I know I should have told you earlier, but I thought you were still mad at me, and I wanted to settle into my role. I'm not like other guys that don't go for what they want. I want you, Ricky." I kissed Eugene passionately, thankfully for the fact that he loved me. Now that we're not in the same company, we don't have to hide anymore. We can be together openly. I want us to try again, without the shadows of work hanging over us. Eugene explained, "If I had done it better, you would have known it all along." "It's all right. I forgive you." I caressed his hair and looked into his eyes. "I love you, Eugene Hansen," I said finally. Eugene looked at me with surprise and pulled me into another kiss. "I love you too, Rick Morris." Have you ever fallen in love with someone unexpected at work, like Rick and Eugene? Share your experiences in the comment. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.